The words were familiar to Courtney. Her mother had been preaching such maxims since she'd come of age. Not long ago she would have been comforted by the reminder. Having been betrothed to Geoffrey nearly all her life, she knew her future husband to be a compassionate man who never failed to offer a lovely compliment or two at every encounter. Not many young women were lucky enough to marry a man they could honestly call a friend. So why did she feel such a heavy press of dread in her chest? Why did she feel as though she were being forced down a path she no longer wanted to travel? Alexandra found passion in her marriage, and I've never known her to be happier. Don't mention her name to me. Her mother's voice was low and frigid. Alexandra Brighton disgraced her family and ruined her good name when she ran off. You will not use her as an example for any behavior. Do you hear me? There were so many things Courtney wanted to say. Alexandra was one of her very best friends, and just last summer she'd run away from a perfectly acceptable fiancé in favor of adventure and romance with a bounty hunter in Montana. Courtney thought what Alexandra had done was the bravest thing she'd ever heard of. But her mother would never think so. This had been a pointless endeavor. Trying to talk to Beverly Adams about anything beyond familial obligation would never get her daughter the reassurances she so desperately needed. Courtney shifted her gaze back to her own reflection. "Of course, Mother," she replied. "Good. Now, no more nonsense." After a thorough, sweeping glance, her mother gave a brief nod and provided a final bit of instruction. "Keep to a sedate pace, and maintain your posture, eyes forward, no smiling." As motherly words of support went, they left much to be desired, but Courtney should have known better than to expect more. "Yes, Mother." Her mother turned and walked away. With a near silent click of the door, Courtney was left alone for the first time that day. In less than 20 minutes, she would be walking down the long aisle of her family's church toward a man she had been betrothed to since she was 2 and he a young boy of 8. There might not be a grand love between them, but such emotions rarely existed in the unions among their social set. Expecting any more, wishing for more, wasn't done. Except that's exactly what Courtney had been doing. At their last encounter, she'd even gathered the courage to ask Geoffrey why he'd never tried to kiss her. He'd laughed. Not a great guffaw, which would have been far beneath his dignity, but a soft chuckle, as though her inquiry was all part of some private joke they shared between them. He had patted her hand and given her a gentle look as he said, "Such demonstrations aren't for us, are they?" She had smiled back, but his words had haunted her ever since. What did he mean? Such things weren't for them. She had asked for a kiss. Was that so odd a thing for a young woman to request of her future husband? She had spent her whole life preparing for this day, feeling nothing but gratitude for being fortunate enough to have such a young, handsome, and charming gentleman as her fiancé. Yet now that the day had come, she was finally marrying Geoffrey and starting on a new phase of her life, she felt dissatisfied. A knock on the door startled her from her troublesome musings. Courtney swept across the room in a rustle of silk and satin, grateful for the distraction. A young errand boy stood outside. "Hello," Courtney said, greeting him with a smile. "May I help you?" The boy stammered, his eyes wide as he blushed a deep red. He was quite young, and Courtney suspected he wasn't accustomed to whatever task he'd been given. She noticed that he clutched 2 letters, one in each hand. She gave a nod of encouragement. "Are you here to deliver a note?" "What? Oh, yes, miss." The boy looked at the 2 letters, his gaze flying from one to the other and back again. Then he thrust one of them forward. "Here, this one is for you. I was instructed to wait until you were alone." Courtney smiled again as she took the letter he extended. Before she could offer him a token in thanks, he sped away. The handwriting on the sealed note was Geoffrey's. It had been addressed simply to "My beloved." A spark of warmth flickered inside her. He'd never called her that before. That he would be so thoughtful as to send her a note in the last moments before they were to wed made Courtney feel instantly guilty for the seeds of dissatisfaction she had allowed to grow.